Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. I wanted to make one more follow-up video on my SummerSlam 2018 full show preview. There's honestly a few matches that I have not touched on, but the one I think we need to go back on is The Miz versus Daniel Bryan. This honestly is a big match, but I honestly don't think that this match is getting the same amount of fanfare that I thought it was going to get when Daniel Bryan first announced that he was returning to WWE. Maybe, I know that he returned and it was sort of like a fill in the gap for the whole, I can't remember who was supposed to be Shane McMahon's partner that I think got injured. And it just wasn't able to happen, so they brought Daniel Bryan back. I honestly don't remember. If you can comment down below and fill in my memory, I honestly really would appreciate it. But if you can remember back that before Daniel Bryan's return was announced, I can remember that there was a rumor that WWE was planning on bringing Daniel Bryan back for a return at SummerSlam. Maybe Daniel Bryan versus The Miz was the original plan for SummerSlam 2018, and he just wasn't supposed to return for WrestleMania. And maybe that's just the way it happened. Now, off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking was originally supposed to happen. And then something happened, and Shane needed somebody to tag with. And it ended up Daniel Bryan was the best fit to add to that match. I'm really stumped here. I really can't remember what that match was supposed to be before Bryan filled in against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. But this match is being billed as 8 years in the making. You go back 8 years, yes, The Miz was Daniel Bryan's pro. At that point, The Miz, he was not WWE champion yet, but I believe at the time he was United States champion. I don't think that The Miz won the belt until the next year at Survivor Series. It would be shortly after their feud. But basically, Bryan was brought into NXT. The Miz was his pro. They did not get along. They did not see eye to eye. Bryan would constantly call The Miz out as, being not as good as he was. And The Miz would always sort of use the same lines that Michael Cole was using, that this guy wrestled in bingo parlors. And the independents aren't the same as wrestling in WWE. And everybody knew the truth. I can remember when Daniel Bryan was going to debut on NXT and people went bananas. And I was like, okay, this is the one person that's coming into WWE that I've never heard of. And if this many people love him, and at that time, is when I was getting on Skype all the time. So I was hearing about how good he was from, Freaking Yaya 88, Destin. I forgot Destin's name. Matt Beast, Undertaker fan for life. 1419, was telling me all this stuff. So I went over to my old school wrestling boards where I used to trade DVDs, and I just posted that I was looking for a Bryan Danielson comp, and somebody sold me one pretty dirt cheap. If I remember right, it was 8 discs of best of matches, and all these matches were all 30 to 45 minutes long, and they were slobber knockers. They were great. That was the best way to open my eyes to who Bryan Danielson was, who Daniel Bryan was going to be, and I had a lot of fun watching those. But the one part that I don't get about billing this match is 8 years in the making is it's almost like, WrestleMania 27 when they didn't talk about WrestleMania 17 with the Triple H versus The Undertaker match. This match has already happened. It's happened quite a few times. It's happened at Night of Champions 2010. I think it happened at the next pay-per-view, whatever that was after that. I think Daniel Bryan and Miz had matches on back-to-back pay-per-views in 2010. I'm sure they had matches on Monday Night Raw and or SmackDown since then. So I know that this is the match that, when Daniel Bryan was retired, he was on Talking Smack. He was, the GM. He was getting his buttons pushed by The Miz. The Miz was basically saying that he wanted to quit. He didn't want to be in WWE anymore. He couldn't wrestle anymore because he didn't want to. And The Miz pushed Daniel Bryan so bad that he had to walk away from the Talking Smack set because he was so upset. And we've heard stories of Daniel Bryan getting in arguments with Triple H. We've heard about him, getting in arguments with people backstage, standing up for himself. But to me, honestly, especially from him being involved in reality shows like Total Divas, Total Bellas, seeing him on the Wrestling Road Diaries, it's hard for me to really believe Daniel Bryan getting upset about just about anything. It's almost like he would just go along with the flow of almost whatever it is. But when you get your buttons pushed on a sensitive topic, basically calling him out that he didn't want to wrestle anymore, that was the breaking point. And I remember making the video. I made the video a ton of times about, hoping that Daniel Bryan was going to return. And I remember my one point of this video that I made at this time was, is Daniel Bryan really going to have his comeback match against The Miz? Is this really the most popular opponent that you could put him against in the biggest match possible? Seeing how, when Daniel Bryan walked away after WrestleMania 30, he was the WWE Champion. You brought him back for WrestleMania 31. He was the Intercontinental Champion when he was forced to walk away. I know that his role was going to be diminished for that return of WrestleMania 31. His plan was to, hold the Intercontinental Championship. He was going to be a SmackDown guy. He was going to sort of have the Intercontinental Champion. So, each episode of SmackDown would have a real wrestling match on the Real Wrestling show. And that's the way a lot of fans actually saw that whole thing panning out. And yeah, he wasn't going to be Intercontinental Champion forever, but he was not going to be that main guy. It's hard to put into words. I think that this is a big match, but at the same time, I don't think this match is as big as they're hyping it up as. It's almost like it's just another match. Maybe if they would have waited and this actually would have been the return, and maybe they could have had a feud where, The Miz was pushing the buttons of Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan, finally, stood up for himself and basically said, maybe the whole thing would have panned out if maybe Daniel Bryan would have beat up The Miz one day on SmackDown. And then, The Miz would have been asking, what kind of repercussions going to be coming for getting beat up by his GM. You can't be putting in these hazardous work conditions and things like that. And then, boom, out of the blue, Daniel Bryan says, well, how about this? We put this forward. How about you can get your hands on me inside of the ring and you can get your revenge? And basically The Miz accepts the match, thinking that it's never going to happen because he's not medically cleared. And then Daniel Bryan pulls the wool over the Miz's eyes, basically saying that he's been cleared and he's just been waiting for the right time to be able to set this match, because he knew that The Miz would never accept under normal circumstances, knowing that Daniel Bryan would kill him. Maybe that's the way that you would get to it. I will say this: Daniel Bryan's return has been awesome. It was a really feel-good moment to hear him have that speech, and then to see him get beat up on the same show and left laying by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. That was kind of honestly surprising. To see him get a win at WrestleMania, that honestly felt good. I know that he had matches against Big Cass on back-to-back pay-per-views before Big Cass was released. Other than that, he had a match against AJ Styles for the championship on SmackDown. But honestly, besides that, I really can't tell you anything else that Daniel Bryan has really done. Maybe it strikes on me because I haven't been the best SmackDown viewer, but it's not like SmackDown's really throwing these matches up to really care. I know that, Daniel Bryan's probably in a spot where Vince and WWE is kind of scared to put the whole green light behind him. Yes, people want to chant yes, 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 so let's have him go out there and wrestle in matches, but let's not book ourselves in a corner where we put this guy in a championship match or we put a championship on him, and then all of a sudden, he's not able to wrestle because he's injured, and we're screwed again. This has already happened to us twice. We can't have this 3 times. So maybe they're not wanting to put him into a main event where you have to, basically shuffle a whole pay-per-view, or you have to basically blow everything up to try and fix it. So I think that this is a big match. I really hope Daniel Bryan's going to get the win. I know that in most feuds in WWE, they go 3 months. And most times the babyface gets the win in month number 1. So I know they're going to want to try to get the most out of it. For me, I always feel the first match is the biggest match. And I understand after you do one match, you have to do a rematch. After the rematch, you have to have the rubber match. And that's how you sort of figure everything out. But the first match to me always is the biggest. I don't understand the booking of this as calling it the 8 years in the making. I know that the match happened where Daniel Bryan beat The Miz at Night of Champions 2010. I'm pretty sure they had a rematch the next month where Daniel Bryan beat him again. That would be August, September. And then, of course, in November is when The Miz would win the championship. I'm sure that they've had matches along the way on SmackDown and Raw. So it's not like we've been clamoring to have this for 8 years. If you want to say that this is the match that we've been waiting a year since, Daniel Bryan walked off the set of Talking Smack, I guess that makes sense. But 8 years just seems like it's a little bit just making you trying to erase the past. And I know that Daniel Bryan really isn't the same wrestler or even the same character really that we saw back in 2010, but the matches happen. People remember. It's not hard to look up. So it's not like we've been really clamoring for it. If you want to say that this is a feud that's been brewing for 8 years, that makes sense. Let's just go with that. So hopefully at SummerSlam, we're going to see Bryan get the win. We'll roll out with that. I'll see you guys down the road.